What's going on, guys? Derek Peachy here from Tronics Technology Solutions. I hope you guys are all having an absolutely fantastic day. And in this episode, we are going to be seeing if graphics card drivers affect the performance of the GPU, and if they do, by how much. So this right here is the test bench setup that we're going to be using for today's test. It is an AMD Radeon HD 6850 GPU by XFX, and we're going to be running different driver versions on this card to see how they affect performance. And after we download each different driver version on this GPU, we're going to benchmark the GPU to see how each driver affects the performance of the GPU. So let's get right into it. So I'm going to open up the device manager. I'll bring this over to where you guys can see it. I'm going to go into the display adapters, right click on the GPU that we're using, and then click on the driver tab. Here we can see the driver version, which is this right here, as well as the date that the driver came out, which was the year 2016, which I believe is the latest driver that AMD rolled out for the 6850. So that's the max, or the newest driver that we can be using. So that's what we're going to be using for the first benchmark test. And for the benchmark test, we're going to be using the Unigine Heaven benchmark. This is version 4.0, and we're going to be running this on the lowest settings, 1920 by 1080 full screen. So let's run the test and see how this goes. So as you can see, the GPU is basically maxing out at 3 FPS. Its temperature is maxing out at 34 degrees Celsius, which is actually very cool. I did replace the thermal paste on this GPU with Arctic thermal paste. There it hit 35 degrees Celsius for a second. This GPU does have a very good cooling system on it. The memory is boosting to 1100 megahertz, and the graphics chip itself is boosting to 800 megahertz, which are perfectly normal numbers for this old GPU. So now let's try a different version. I'm going to try the the oldest version that I can for this card that supports Windows 10. So let's go download that version and run the benchmark again, see if any of these numbers change. So while I had the drivers uninstalled, I thought I would actually try to run a benchmark test without any drivers installed at all. You can see the display resolution is very, very weird. There's these black bars on the side, and if we look at Device Manager, you can see under display adapters, we just have Microsoft Basic Display Adapter, which is basically showing us that no GPU driver is installed at all. So at this point, the graphics card is acting really weird. It doesn't want to detect the secondary monitor, even though it's hooked up to the integrated graphics, which is very weird. The PC is acting very strange. So we're going to run this benchmark in 1920 by 1080p, even though, as you can see in the display settings here, the monitor wants to run at 1024 by 768 because there's no driver installed. We're going to try to run this in 1080p anyway, just because I want to keep the test as consistent as possible. So let's see how this thing performs without any drivers installed at all. So as you can see in this test, we're getting about 1 to 2 frames per second without any drivers installed at all. Also, there's no information in the top right corner because the PC has no idea what it's even running right now. Yeah, don't run your GPU without any drivers installed. Make sure you at least have a driver installed. So now if we take a look at Device Manager, go to Display Adapters, we can see that we have our HD 6800 series GPU, properties, driver, and now we're running the this version of the driver from 2015. So let's see how this driver performs to the other two tests that we've run so far. So now, as you can see, we're getting a solid 3 to 4 FPS. About the same, a little bit lower every once in a while than the 2016 driver. I've also noticed that the GPU is really fluctuating a lot between 34 and 35 degrees Celsius, which it was not doing on the 2016 driver. It was staying at a very solid 34 degrees Celsius. And the clock speeds are the same on both the memory and the GPU chip itself. FPS, I would say, again, is a little bit lower. And, but yeah, pretty much the same. A little bit less good, I guess, performance than the 2016 driver. So I would say always make sure to keep your drivers up to date to keep your GPUs running at their peak performance. So I think what we can gain from this is that you should always keep your GPU drivers updated, even if it's not going to affect performance that much. Like we saw, it affected it by, maybe 1 to 2 FPS, and the temperatures were basically the same as before. Always make sure to keep your drivers up to date, just because often they have things that Windows needs. Windows continues to update. If your graphics card drivers are out of date, there's going to be some things that may cause crashing, blue screens, things like that. And if you don't know what a driver is, basically it's what allows the hardware in your computer, like the graphics card, to communicate with the software. So like Windows 10, Windows 11, whichever version you're using. Also, don't run your GPU without drivers. That PC was all sorts of wacky. It was not picking up monitors every time. I try to plug in the monitor. Some monitors would like flicker and stuff, and it was just really weird. It was running at weird resolutions, and as you saw, we got very, very low frame rates. The PC didn't even know what it was, had installed in it, so it wasn't able to utilize the GPU. So yeah, make sure to keep your guys' drivers updated. I hope you guys did enjoy this tutorial. So I hope you guys did enjoy this test. I thought it was a very interesting experiment to run on this PC. And hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more of these videos like this, make sure to leave a big like on this video. And I will catch you guys in the next one.